Namaste everyone and welcome to this session which is titled DILR Strategy for CAT Repeaters. My name is Bhushan Bapat and in the next few minutes I'll be discussing some very important pointers with regards to your DILR preparation strategy that is going to be relevant not just for repeaters but for people who will be appearing for the very first time in CAT. So although the title is slightly specific towards repeaters, there's only a very minor section in the middle that focuses on repeaters. Otherwise, the start and specifically the end is extremely important for anybody who is going to appear in the CAT. So without wasting any more time, let's jump right in with regards to the agenda that we have for this particular session. So I've divided this particular discussion into three broad areas. One is getting a perspective of what the DILR section of CAT currently stands for if we go and deep dive into the history of what DILR has thrown in the last 9 years since CAT 2017. So we'll develop a perspective with regards to what is it that we need to focus on when it comes to DILR. Second, we'll focus on the process at hand, what could be the steps that we can take. And finally, I'm pretty sure that most of you would know by now that DILR is as much a game of temperament, mindset, and your ability to stay calm under pressure as much as it is about knowledge and your ability to apply skills. So the last part is extremely important, which is the right mindset, the right psychology of preparing and appearing for DILR as far as CAT exam is concerned. So let's start with the first part, which is getting a perspective and realizing where do we currently stand and what is it that CAT DILR actually takes to secure a fabulous percentile. So let's start with this part on perspective. Now I have in front of you a very interesting puzzle based on mathematical reasoning. The sum of 5 different natural numbers greater than 4 is 38. How many different combinations exist? Now I'll want you to pause this video and try and get the answer for this question as quickly as possible. Once you get the answer, I'll suggest that you share the answer along with the time that you typically take to get all the possible combinations. I'll be replying in comments what could be the possible way in which to deduce this and what could be the typical time. Alright, I'm assuming that you have paused and tried this exercise. You have identified certain number of possible combinations. Now, why did I start with this when I said that let's have a perspective on what DILR throws at us? Now, CAT DILR, typically any set based on mathematical reasoning or quant-based reasoning will typically have one or the other clue that will probably check your ability to create possibilities. So it's a good wake-up call for us if you are not able to create these possibilities in, let's say, within a minute or a minute and a half. If you are taking more than that, then there is a gap in our skill to create those possibilities, and now is the time for us to identify such gaps across topics. So this is from mathematical reasoning, but it could very well be for Venn diagrams, it could be for graphs and charts, it could be for games and tournaments, it could be for cubes, it could be for any topic broadly covered under the headings of data interpretation and logical reasoning. So moving ahead, so this is a good wake-up call. It's a check to understand are there conceptual gaps, at least in mathematical reasoning, and then you can benchmark it for other topics as well. Moving ahead, a very interesting irony exists in DILR. Although it's a game of logic and interpretation, I'm pretty sure that a lot of you would realize if you have appeared for CAT earlier that you did not fail because you did not know the logic, rather you failed because you picked the wrong battle. Now think about it. A lot of times you would have felt that your set selection was not probably right. And believe me when I say this, forget the 100 percentilers and maybe the 99.9 plus percentilers. For the rest of mere mortals like us, like me, like you, I would say that there would always be a set or two in every CAT exam, every slot that would take more than 20 minutes for you to solve for the first time. Once you've got a hang of things, maybe you come out of the exam hall and try it out, that's a different story. You know, conditions are already in your head, you're able to figure out things. But for a lot of mere mortals like us, you would find that there would always be a set that would take a lot more time than what is expected in the exam, and therefore choosing the right sets, choosing the correct order in which to attempt the sets, not panicking are some of the things that I'm pretty sure that all of you would be able to relate to. This is, despite the fact that you might be very good in logic. So there is no need to be disheartened. If that was the scenario that happened to you in CAT 25, no worries at all. We are going to think about it, find a way so that we are able to minimize our losses and have that fabulous percentile. Now, moving ahead, if you look at the process of selection and getting certain sets right vis-a-vis percentile, the corresponding data typically says that if you are able to solve all 4 sets, typically CAT throws either 4 or 5 for the last 2 years, 66 marks are there, and therefore you have 22 questions. So typically you have had 5 sets now. So if you are able to solve even 4 sets correctly, so when I say 4 sets correctly, somewhere around 16 to 17 plus questions, right, net, you are sure to get a 99.9 percentile. If you are able to solve 3 sets completely correct, you get a 99.5 plus percentile. Even if you are able to solve just 2 sets correctly, you typically touch around the 98.2 percentile mark. Now, having said this, let me clarify. When I say 2 sets, in the last few years, there have been sets with 5 questions, some sets with 4 questions. So typically we are talking of in the range of 8 to 9 questions net right. So if you have 9 net questions right, no errors, typically you land up with a score of 27, which would definitely fetch you a 98.2 percentile. If you just solve one single set with 5 questions, reach a score somewhere around 14 to 15 marks, you secure 85 percentile, which is good enough to clear cutoffs. And believe me, if you are watching this video, your first priority should not be to dream big and say that I'm going to get a 100 percentile or 99.9 percentile. Irrespective of where you stand, your first priority should be no matter what, I'm going to clear the sectional percentile for DLR, and you effectively just need net 4 to 5 questions, right, to be able to do that. This entire data that you see on your screen is on the basis of last 5 years data for CAT 21 to CAT 2025. Now, if you go deeper and look at the marks in the next slide, you see the corresponding marks required from 80 percentile range to the 100 percentile range. Now, look at CAT 24 and 25. The total marks in the right hand side column you would see as 66. This is because now we have had 5 sets, some with 4 questions, some with 5 questions each. Now, for 2025, I'll just want you to look at this particular number of 14 marks. It fetches you 85 percentile. Now, 14 marks, one set. But the problem is, if you pick the wrong set or wrong sets, a lot of your time gets wasted in trying to solve and you achieve nothing. And believe me, this is the story for majority of the aspirants. May not be true for you, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of you would be able to relate and understand that even getting that one set right, all 5 net questions, is not that easy. Now, if you move further and get one more question right, so if I say you've got already 14 as a score, you get one more question right, you jump to a score of 17 and you touch 90 percentile, which is plus 3 marks. It's a game of very narrow margins. Plus 5 fetches you a 95 percentile, 22 plus 5, 27 fetches you a 98 percentile. So there is effectively a very small gap, one set, two set. One set and partially correct few questions of another set, 2 sets and partially correct of some another set. Even a mixture of some of these things can fetch you that percentile that you're looking for. So typically the gap that you see between an 85 percentile and a 95 percentile is generally just 2 questions. This perspective was extremely important for us to understand one thing, that, although it seems very challenging or daunting to clear sectional cutoffs for DLR, getting that high percentile, you just need to first focus on getting that one set completely right. Once you consistently are able to achieve that, move on to second set, then move on to third set, partial questions in third set, then the fourth set. So depending on the stage of preparation that you are, this perspective is extremely important for you to have. Now, moving ahead, let's move to the process. So now we have understood, okay, this is what I need to do. What is the process that I must follow? What should I do? You have been practicing, you have been solving, you've been appearing in tests, but nothing seems to work out. So what should you exactly do? Let's move to the part of process. So the first area that I'll take up in this part is the process that you need to follow while you are studying. So I'm not talking of a test-taking environment. I'm here specifically talking about the part where you'll be preparing, attending sessions, watching videos, learning and improving. So in this, the obvious part is practice. But practice alone is not sufficient. There is a very important element of audit that you must follow it up with. And believe me, a lot of people focus heavily on the practice part, but not as much on audit. And I'll tell you exactly what to do when you think of audit. And finally, once that audit is done, that audit will tell you what to do next in terms of revision. So what is it that you need to revise? So let's deep dive into the part on practice. One specific thing that you can do is practice module tests if you're a IMS student, or if you have some other material, identify certain modules that you have been able to complete and practice those particular tests. Believe me, they will strengthen your skills towards that particular module or chapter. Similarly, you can take benchmarking tests, you can practice sectional tests, you can practice obviously from SimCats, and very important source, probably a very crucial source specifically from the perspective of repeaters, is the previous year's CAT question papers. Believe me, there is no better source of mapping the actual level of difficulty than the actual CAT papers. And it is kind of obvious to say this, that when you learn it from the horse's mouth, there is nothing better than that. So practice from all these areas. If you have certain material or access, my strong recommendation will be stop solving via booklets which are physical in nature. It's a completely different ball game when you solve it online, and all the things that I've recommended are available online for you to solve. So solve a lot of practice material online. Once you are doing this parallelly, let's say you have taken a particular sectional test. What is it that you need to do in terms of audit and analysis? I'm pretty sure a lot of you would do the analysis, you will solve the sets that you have not been able to solve. Probably you will solve the sets that you have been able to solve with alternate methods, watch the video solutions, sum up some learnings and then move on. But there is very specific part of your preparation that you need to focus on in audit, that is identifying a set type. Create a notebook where you write down analysis of whatever you have practiced when you do the audit. So what do you mean by set type? If you have not been able to solve a particular set, write down the type that that particular set had. What could be the possible types? It could be a set on mathematical reasoning, quant-based reasoning. It could be Venn diagram. It could be those different charts and graphs. It could typically be Venn diagram. It could be some concepts in quants like average, mean, median, mode, weighted average, some application of those concepts, trying to figure out certain values. It could be ratios and percentages. It could possibly be games and tournaments. Identify the type of set. It could be a mixture of multiple topics. When you are not able to do anything, you should be able to pinpoint that, this is something that I have not been able to get a hold of. I'll give you an example. If you ask any athlete, what are they doing to improve themselves, they'll be very good at their ability to find out what they are not good at. Sachin Tendulkar knew this, that the balls outside the off stump are his challenge, and there was one test match where he did not play a single shot on the offside because he was getting out. So your ability to figure out what the problem is extremely important. Make sure that you identify the type of set, the type of concepts that that particular set involves. Write that down. Once over a period of time you have sufficient material getting practiced, you will be able to find a trend that, games and tournaments, maximization, minimization, 4 parameter Venn diagram is something that I am not good at. Maybe when there are extra info in questions, I am not able to figure out a lot of conditional based questions. So write it exactly what you are finding trouble with. Concept gap. A lot of people tend to ignore this completely, and which is why I kept the puzzle at the start. If you have not solved it, please solve it and solve at least 10 plus puzzles of similar nature so that you get a good hang of things. Identify concepts gap. Can you create the basic 4 parameter Venn diagram and fill values? If that is the case, you understand at least the concepts in Venn diagrams. Can you understand knockout tournaments where, let's say, there are 128 players, ranked 1 player is playing with 128th ranked player, in the semi-final who would play with who, in quarter-final who would play with who, there are standard games on picking up coins or sticks. Are you able to figure out the basic concepts underlying those particular subtopics? If that is the case, yes, then write it down in your areas of coverage or strength. And if you are not good at it, make sure that you go back to the drawing board and work on your basics by watching videos, by learning those concepts, and then coming back and applying them again. So once you are appearing in a test, identify the concept gap that you have had in trying to solve a particular set or not being able to solve a particular set. And if there are alternate ways, a lot of times you'll find that heavy use of allegation is done in a lot of DI based sets. So if you feel you're not very good with DI, you're not very good with allegation, percentages, ratios, then maybe it's time to go back and work on those basics so that you improve. Otherwise, the situation is going to remain the same. You practice, you analyze, you again go back to practice, you analyze, and then after a month or so, you say nothing is changing. It will not. It's kind of obvious. What else? You need to make sure that you understand which particular type of sets are consuming a lot of time and why are you getting tempted to solve them. If that temptation is causing trouble in the actual exam scenario, then you need to get over that temptation with regards to some of the sets that look very easy but are going to consume 20-25 minutes. So you waste a lot of time trying to get them and then panic. So identify which sets are taking time. Are they actually time consuming? If they are, then it's better to leave them. If they are not, why is it that you are taking more time than expected? What is the bottleneck? Then again, work on those areas and move ahead. The next part that we'll take up is extremely crucial, and I have seen lots of toppers who are able to pinpoint what they are not good at because they maintain an error log. Now, error log is slightly different from whatever we have discussed so far. Suppose you have practiced a particular set and you have not been able to crack it. When you analyze, a lot of times you'll feel, okay, this was a condition that I was not able to understand. These were the 2 clues that I was not able to relate. Maybe I forgot to read respectively. Maybe there was a condition in the mother paragraph. A lot of times you'll find that you just focused on the following conditions are also known pointers, but you forgot that there was a mother condition where total students were given, or no 2 containers can have the same type of marbles. Something of this sort was given in the original mother condition and you were not able to focus on that. Identify the type of errors. A lot of times you tend to say, oh, that was a silly mistake. There was just total given in the first line, I just missed it. Or in the question statement, not was asked or can was asked and I, somehow just missed it. No mistake is silly mistake. Every mistake will cost you the same, some even more heavily. So make sure that you maintain an error log. Write it in your exact own words. Why did you fail? Why were you not able to crack a particular set? Now, when it comes to revision, make sure that you revisit all the concepts. A lot of times I've seen that aspirants tend to focus on revision for quant. They will revise, let's say, quadratic equation, number theory, understand all the theorems, they'll revise theorems for geometry. But a lot of times you tend to feel there's nothing to revise in DLR. There is no theory whatsoever. There is a lot of theory. There is a lot of fundamental skill development that happens. And in any mental exercise, your ability to stay in touch matters. So that's why that puzzle, going back to that puzzle again, practice Sudoku, practice Kakuro, practice all those things that have been shared with you earlier. Just because you have done it last year does not mean that it is going to be valid and effective this year as well. You'll have to start it all over again this year. Once more, make sure that you revisit those concepts. Make sure that you don't forget the basic fundamentals and give energy to mental exercises so that you stay on top of your game. Focus, practice and mental makeup. The next 2 pointers when you revisit are extremely crucial. What do you mean by focused practice? Once you have done the audit, suppose you realize that maximization, minimization based Venn diagrams are something that are causing trouble. What could be the least possible value? Or if some people who play both cricket and football are transferred to some other area, what will then happen? If that is a problem area, then you need to practice specifically those particular sets. If data interpretation is causing trouble to you, that just when you look at an overwhelming data in the form of bar graph, line charts, and some table, some paragraph based clues or conditions, linking those, you immediately tend to feel that this is not my cup of tea. If that is the feeling you are getting, then you need to do focused preparation on this. And the last part is a mental makeup, and we are going to move shortly to the part on psychology as well. But what do I mean when I say revisit and do a mental makeup? It is important for you to motivate yourself time and again. I've seen a lot of people getting disheartened just because after a month or two, when they are revisiting, they either tend to get bored, they tend to get demotivated and completely disheartened that I will not be able to do it. If this feeling comes to you after, specifically for repeaters, that you have tried it last year, you feel you've completed material, you are appearing in tests, you're practicing, and despite that, you feel that nothing is changing, this feeling is completely natural. You are not alone. But staying with this feeling is not okay. You need to motivate yourself that you need to fight till the end. You need to prepare, practice, revisit, revise, audit, repeat, do all those sort of things over and over again till the CAT exam and beyond. So this mental resilience, if I can call that term, is extremely important when you revisit. There are a few things that you can do. Maybe have a quotation after every revision when you are revising a particular concept. Maybe create a log where you felt disheartened or demotivated after a particular set, and maybe played a sport, something that pushed you higher so that you focus back again on your ability to improve and get back at it again. Now, this was the process that we covered with regards to while studying. Now, what are the important pointers that you need to take care of when you actually are appearing in a particular SimCAT or taking a mock or actually appearing in the CAT exam? So, process that you need to follow during the exam, and this is very crucial for the right set selection. So, there are 3 broad areas in which typically you can decide whether a particular set has to be selected or not. The first one being type of set. So what do you mean type of set? The type of set could be a standard set or a unique set. 2 simple classifications. What do you mean by standard? Standard would mean those sets that you have seen, you have tried, you have practiced, you are very familiar. So the moment you see this, you say, oh, there is distribution, there is a matrix that I'll create, there are some basic values that I'll need to plug in. So if the set is a very standard set, allocate 3 marks, 3 pointers to it. If it seems somewhat familiar, allocate 2 marks. If you feel that you have never seen such a set and there is a chance that you might still be able to do, but you're not very familiar with this is not the standard sets that you've seen so far in your preparation, this is completely new and unique, then allocate either a 1 or 0. Now, this is the first way in which you will benchmark. So, glance at the set, identify the type, whether it's unique, whether it's standard. Allocate 3, 2, 1, 0, depending on the feel that you have on the basis of reading the paragraphs, clues, data, etc. The second part that we focus on is type of conditions. So, when you look at the clues, the conditions that are given specifically after a particular paragraph, in the paragraph, after the paragraph, and so on, what do the conditions tell you? Are the conditions plug-in type or they are deductive? What do you mean plug-in? The information will be fairly direct. Raj has 7 marbles, Ashish has 10 marbles, red cap is won by Nagesh, etc. etc. So, if there is a direct information that you can directly plug in, so that's why we call it plug in. You can directly put that condition in your rough sheet while you are creating that particular grade or structure, whichever way you are wanting to solve it, you can put that information in directly without any sort of trouble, and that is a plug-in condition. Whereas deductive would be the opposite of that. You will need to infer a lot of data, you will need to refer to other clues, maybe you will have to derive few things to be able to understand that particular condition. So if the conditions prima facie feel to you that they are plug-in and there are a lot of plug-in based conditions, then this is to your advantage. So allocate, let's say 3 marks, 3 pointers for it. And then if some conditions are plug-in, some are deductive, allocate 2. If most of the conditions are deductive, allocate a 1. And if you feel all of the conditions are deductive, maybe give a 0. So these are the two broad categories in terms of type of set and type of conditions. And the last area that you can decide, that you can pick to decide whether to choose a particular set would be the part on the type of questions that typically come. So when you say type of questions, the questions could be either closed or open. Closed questions would mean you will have all the 4 options and there is a definite answer. So how many people played in round 3? And there are 4 options, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you know for sure that this set is solvable, at least from the perspective of this question. This is called a closed question. What is typically an open question? If Ajay plays in round 2, then which of the following could be the players who could have played round 3? How many players could have played round 3? Then there is extra info in questions. You don't know whether that set would be completely solvable or not. There will be cannot be determined kind of a situation. There could be more than 2 or 3 statements that you need to check whether they are true or false, and more than one could possibly be true. So you have options like both 1 and 2, both 2 and 3, etc., etc. So such questions are typically called as open questions. The more closed questions, the better it is for you. So allocate marks. If all the questions are closed, allocate maybe 4 marks. If some are closed, most are closed, some are open, 3, 2, 1, 0. Effectively, what will happen via this is, overall you will have, because of these 3 broad areas, total 10 pointers to score every set on. And once you get a score in excess of 7, you should pick that particular set. The ordering may differ. You may choose a particular set depending on your area of strength and comfort. But if a particular set has a score of 7 or more, you are expected to pick that set and solve it. So this is the typical benchmarking that we have. Now, a lot of you feel, sir, if we do all this, it will consume a lot of time. How much time should we give on set selection? Now, this has to be a very particular question depending on the stage of preparation you are and the kind of percentiles you are currently getting in mocks and the aspiration that you have of getting a particular percentile. So it's a question that cannot be generally answered, but despite that, I've created scenarios as to which stage of preparation or percentile you are currently at and what could be the amount of time that you could dedicate to set selection. So if we move ahead, time management during exam with regards to set selection could be like this, that if you are at 85th percentile, you are somewhere practicing in mocks and getting that one set correct, then you can spend around 10 minutes on set selection across 5 sets. So you will go through all 5 sets. Remember, there is a view question paper link at the top right hand side. If you click on this, you will be able to scroll the entire question paper along with questions. That's a very good way for you to quickly glance and jot down all the 3 conditions that we identified to pick the set. The type of questions, type of set, and typically the conditions whether plug-in or deductive. You can very quickly do that. So 10 minutes is something that I'll recommend if you are at 85 percentile, somewhere around 9 to 10 minutes again at 90 percentile, because there is hardly any difference in terms of the number of questions that we'll be able to get right between 85-90. Around 7 to 8 minutes for a 95 to 98 percentiler, and if you are targeting 99 plus, maybe have that aspiration. If not now, maybe come 1, 2, 3, 4 months later, that you need to reduce your time for set selection to about 5 minutes. Now, 5 minutes is also not something that you have to be stuck at. If you feel you can do it in 4 minutes, 3 minutes, wow, amazing. But realistically speaking, around 4 to 5 minutes is something that even toppers would need to decide on which sets to pick. Now, your ability to score that particular percentile will revolve around how much typical time you take to solve those sets. So, suppose you're currently not even able to clear the cutoffs and get an 85 percentile, your set 1 can take 20 minutes, your set 2 can take 10 minutes. Suppose in 20 minutes you're able to get all questions right, you've already cleared the cutoff for 85 percentile. And if you can get even 1 or 2 questions right in the next 10 minutes that you spend on the second set, that's a bonus. So 20 minutes and 10 minutes is the bifurcation that you'll have for 85 percentile. For 90th percentile, you can have 15 minutes, somewhere around that for both the sets, and get most of the questions right across both sets. For 95 to 98 percentile, take around 8 odd minutes for the easiest set. Now, when I say the first set, they are assuming here that your set selection strategy would be 100% accurate. You'll be able to pick the easiest set first, and therefore you will take 8 minutes. In reality, it may not always happen this way. You might take the first set and it might take 10, 11 minutes. It's okay. Maybe the second set that you pick will only take 7, 8 minutes. But if you're wanting to get that 95, 98 percentiler, you will need to move to third set and get some partial questions right of that third. In a good case scenario, you might just pick 2 sets, get all 9 questions, 8 questions right, and get that 97, 98 percentile. If you're targeting 99 plus, you understand that it's a game of seconds, it's a game of inches, it's a game of that extra one question that you can do after solving 2-3 sets. So you need to be on top of your game, be very, very particular about squeezing out any kind of time that you can. Crack sets in around 8 odd minutes, the first 2 sets, and then maybe some more time for remaining sets. So broadly, this is how you can move ahead with your time management strategy with regards to the conditions that we decided. Moving ahead, we have covered the 2 broad parts as to how you are expected to prepare. Now, personally speaking, everything that we have discussed so far does not really matter if the third part, and which is why I said the last part is extremely important, if the psychology, if the mental temperament that you have is not right, then the first 2 will really not matter that much. So let's move ahead to the part on what do I mean with regards to the psychology of solving. I'm just going to discuss certain pointers, and then I'll want you to think differently if you are thinking on slightly irrelevant or wrong lines which are hampering your preparation. So let us take those pointers one by one. First pointer that you need to understand is effortless solving is an illusion. You might have come across some of your peers, toppers in your mocks, who feel that, they look at the set, they look at third clue first, they look at seventh clue, and they are in a very smooth manner able to create that entire matrix, that grid, get all 5 questions right. When you interact with them, it feels that it was as if they knew the solution and they were just explaining it one by one. Believe me, effortless solving is an illusion. Even when you look at video solutions, understand that the set has been practiced, solved, and then explained to you so that you understand different clues. But irrespective of the person, whoever is solving will navigate between first, second, third, seventh, coming back to first, going back to the mother conditions, looking at questions, looking at options, trying to refigure what the clue is trying to say. Could there be any other interpretation? There will always be a lot of struggle. So there is nothing effortless in solving a particular DLR set as far as CAT preparation goes. So if you feel that, I am very messy when I solve, I am not able to get a very clear-cut solution all the time, it is perfectly normal. Accept it. You can always improve and get better, but it is okay if it is not effortless. Second important point, be prepared to create possibilities or scenarios. A lot of times, I've seen aspirants questioning, this will take a lot of cases. Who is going to create those cases? They question it themselves. So I left it because it felt that there were too many cases. Understand, if you question who will create those cases, the answer lies within you. You will have to create those cases, man. And therefore, please do not shy away, especially when you have 2-3 possibilities only. Obviously, if there are 7-8 cases, then you might want to go to other clues. But if you have exhausted all clues and you have decided that this is a set that you are going to do, even if there are 3-4 scenarios, please try and create them. You would have eventually realized that some of the possibilities will cease to exist. Even if they are number plugin based questions, you might feel that, there could be a 5, a 6, a 7, a 8. Put those 5 scenarios, 5/6/7/8. You will be able to eliminate some of those scenarios later on. Please do not shy away from creating possibilities and do not waste time pondering whether I should not. If you feel there are more than 4 scenarios, maybe move to next set of clues and come back later. But if there are just 2, 3 scenarios, please build them right away. Relentless focus. Just try and think whether in that 40 minutes when you are trying to solve DILR, after a grueling 40 minutes of ERC, I'm talking of the actual scenario, maybe mocks, maybe the actual CAT exam, after 40 minutes of ERC, when you are in that 40 minutes of DLR, how are your energy levels? And this is extremely important. I'm talking of mental energy levels. Do you feel exhausted in between and feel like that, it's not happening? If that is the case, then you need to build mental stamina. So once you get out of the exam hall, you need to make sure that you start doing such drills where you develop ability to focus and concentrate for large number of minutes in one go. So have longer sitting hours and replicating the scenario where you have tried 40 minutes, 1 hour of VRC and then solving DLR. A lot of times you feel that when I'm solving back home, I am taking up DLR for a stretch of 3 hours, which is good. Nothing wrong with that as well as a strategy. But then you get into a zone of what we call as flow state and you're able to crack sets one after the other because you have been able to reach that state. But in the exam scenario, after 40 minutes of VRC comes the DLR and you feel that, things are not happening. If you feel mentally drained, you need to build that stamina. So relentless focus is the key because you never know when that eureka moment will come where you'll be able to crack the set. So you need to be at it, continuously solving and trying to figure out what could be the possible scenarios without feeling tired, without trying to analyze, oh, I've already spent 10 minutes, what am I doing? You need to be so much in the zone, if I can call that term, that you have to be so much in the zone that you are at it. You don't know what the innovators are saying, you don't know who's sitting next beside you, completely lost. And then finally you'll find that, oh, there is this moment, been able to crack this set. Then comes a part of something that a lot of people will be able to relate to. You pick the wrong set. Despite all this strategizing, I picked the first set, spent 7-8 minutes on trying to solve it. It was almost solvable, but then I messed it up. I had to redraw the entire grade. I wasted 3-4 more minutes. It's around 12, 13, 14 minutes. I have reached nowhere. It was a bad choice of first set and that derailed my entire 40 minutes completely. If you feel that this is something that happens to you, that a bad first set choice, completely makes your paper go haywire, then you are probably not thinking right. My way of attempting a particular DLR section is to consider each set as an exam in itself. It's okay if you are not able to clear that particular set, that particular exam. There is another one coming up. It's very important to forget what has happened in the past. This is true for sports as well. Again, I'll take an analogy from cricket. Suppose you were beaten on the previous ball. Do you let that linger on your head that you were beaten in the previous ball? I need to be careful about a Yorker. I need to make sure that my bat is in front. I do not need to get an LBW appeal again. No, you don't really worry about all that. You look at the ball in the next scenario and hit it. So if there is a bad first set, please understand that it is not the end of the story. So these are things that have nothing to do with your preparation, honestly. It can happen to anyone. But if that happens, how do you recover from it? Instead of 3 sets, are you still able to solve 2 sets? Instead of 2 sets, are you still able to get 1 set completely correct? So this is what will define your overall percentile and the sectional percentile later on. Finally, DI a lot of times is doable. I've seen multiple aspirants picking one area. I am good in DI, not that great in LR. I am great at LR, not that great in DI. You can't decide and pick and choose a particular section under DILR and say that, LR is my strength. You don't know the level of difficulty across the 2 domains. So there might be a case where DI might be very easy. There might be a case where a Venn diagram set might be easy. It's very important for you to pick the easy ones rather than saying that this is not my area of strength. Believe me, a lot of times in the past, DI have been doable. And if you are someone who shies away from DI, please get over that. Same is the case with LR. If you are someone who just only focuses on DI but forgets LR, then you need to work towards your reasoning skill sets well. And similarly, a lot of times although we say that your set selection depends heavily on your ability to figure out whether you've been able to solve such sets previously, but unfamiliar does not always mean unsolvable. So sometimes you will find some conditions, if not the entire set, which is slightly unfamiliar. Allow yourself that patience, that it is okay if I'm not familiar with this, I'll try it out and possibly get over the line. So these are some important pointers. And last but not the least, enjoying the process is extremely important. Believe me, if you're able to generate interest in what you're doing, whether it's practice, whether it's audit, whether it is revision, whether it is looking at video solutions, solving your own, practicing Sudoku, Kakuru, anything that you're doing, if you're not enjoying it, you might not always enjoy it. You might have phases where you feel, last few days, I've just been solving just for the sake of it. But over a period of a month, 2 months, few months, it should feel that you want to enjoy that process of, there is no other better feeling, if I can put it, when you're able to crack a set. Let's face it. So are you able to enjoy that feeling? Yo, I was able to crack this set. I was able to get this much percentile in mock. That part of enjoying the process is extremely important. Not all days will be great, but not all days have to be bad. It's not a punishment that you have to go through. It's something that you've decided for yourself. And if you keep these pointers in mind, I think this should work really well towards getting that percentile. I'll end on this note that what are the next exact steps that you have to do? Make sure that you review mistakes of CAT 25 if you have appeared earlier. If not, whatever mocks you have solved, write down those mistakes that you have committed to not being able to solve multiple sets. Then identify conceptual gaps. You cannot leave any subtopic that I've mentioned previously in the discussion in terms of not understanding them. You need to be very clear with all the basic fundamentals and concepts. Then create a daily routine. In all the successful people's biographies, autobiographies, their videos, podcasts, whatever you see, you will always find that people have worked really hard and they have followed a very strict routine. Whether it's athletes, business people, academicians, aspirants, toppers, take anybody, they have a fantastic routine which they follow religiously, which they follow rigorously. If you don't have a daily routine, it's high time that you create that routine and try your best to stick to it. Think of a pendulum. If you switch it here, it will move slightly here, go back to the other side, then come back here. Slight amount of variation is okay. But there has to be a center on which you will focus. That this is what I'm going to follow in terms of my daily routine. So I hope that whatever we have discussed so far will help a lot of aspirants going ahead with the right strategy. Finally, I'll end my discussion with this quote that DILR is a game of temperament. It's not just intelligence. The winner is the one who chooses the right fight. If you choose the right sets, have the right processes in place to audit, to revise, to get back again, then probably you will be in a good place to crack CAT and get a fantastic percentile in the DLR section and overall, obviously, as well. So that's it from my side. Please do share your answers and comments to the questions that I've asked. Do ask any other questions that you might have with regards to the discussion that we have had so far, and I'll be happy to answer them. Wishing you a fantabulous CAT and an amazing percentile in the DLR section.